Speaking of the defensive line, I saw this as well, and shout out Pride of Detroit because they put out an article again talking about what actually you remember Bo Allen,
God, the name sounds familiar.
Defensive tackle.
Oh, yeah. Long blonde hair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Got like a mustache.
Yeah.
He was pretty good, by the way. He wasn't bad. But he put out a whole breakdown on Alim McNeill, and he's a part of the Green Light podcast, which is that was with Chris Long. Yep, veteran another defensive lineman. And Bo Allen talked about Alim McNeill and had some interesting quotes here about what he can be. He said he's a really good player. He also said, love hearing his story about how productive he's been in 2023 since changing his body type, taking the game very seriously. I think he plays with really good technique. He's very, very twitchy as a pass rusher, super active hands. I think he has a really good technique in the run game as well. I thought he played really well in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. And he said, I'm a big fan of Alim McNeill, jealous that my boy C. Long got to interview him because he seems like a really cool guy. Got to give those nose guards some love. And he went on to kind of talk about what he could be next year. And there was another comment here. DJ Reader talked a lot about Alim McNeill. And basically this conversation is about what kind of year he could have next year. And a lot of national media, some people interviewing Alim McNeill, and the narrative with Alim is people believe in a contract year, he's set to have a massive breakout year.
I think so.
Massive. With the addition of DJ Reader, you want to bring up Marcus Davenport, James Houston being back, and Steve Wild's right there. Alim has Matabuke potential. Where are you guys at with Alim McNeill's ceiling and just kind of his, future with the Lions and kind of him being one of the pillars? Where are you at with that? What can he be in the NFL? Can he be Matabuke to Steve Wild's? Because that's a guy who had a sack, basically a half a sack or a sack a game.
I think the production of Matabuke as far as sack a game may be a little extreme, but if you look at Alim McNeill, his path to get a massive extension, whether it's from the Lions or from another team next season, it's the Booner path. Like, it's just like you got back to the quarterback when you were healthy, and you still got, what was it, 5.5 sacks, and you missed some time. Aiden Hutchinson, you add DJ Reader into that, you add Jack Campbell into that, you add a better secondary into that. I think Alim McNeill is a guy that could very easily have 9 to 12 sacks this year. And when you add that in as the defensive tackle position, that is a defensive changer. I think he's going to be one of those guys that he's definitely going to be a Pro Bowler. He could find his way into maybe a couple of like second team All-Pro votes. I don't think he's going to be an All-Pro type of guy, but he's going to have, in my opinion, if he stays healthy, a monster season. I think he's due.
I don't know his potential. Like, I'm trying to. He's a guy that I think can certainly get around close to double-digit sacks. He basically did it last year. You mentioned it, 5.5. He missed a couple games.
With the
he probably
injury,
was at like 7, maybe 8. That's assuming, but he is more of a pass rusher than I ever thought he'd be when Brad Holmes drafted him. Like, I thought of him as he's a nose tackle. But then as the years kind of went on and he got his body right, now I'm like, wait, hold up. He's got some pass rush ability. It got some juice. And that's why I think Alim in a contract year, he could mess around and go close to get close to 10 sacks. And I think the biggest reason for that and why I believe it more than I did prior is because of DJ Reader. Like, Alim McNeill into Aiden, every play, they're over there getting double teamed. Now, how do you approach that? Like, DJ Reader, you have to double team him. That dude is he's different. He's different. And then Aiden Hutchinson, you have to double him, Boone. So, I mean, Alim McNeill looking at some one-on-ones here.
Yeah, and potentially you add someone on the other side as well. It's just like those guys. The Alim McNeill thing too is he was able, and that was something they brought up too in this YouTube video, was they brought up when they spoke with Alim as well, is he's been able to stay on the field so much longer by taking care of his body and transforming his body and getting so many more reps. And the interesting thing to me was when you stay on the field that long, especially as a guy like Alim McNeill, who you can dominate the game all game long, you could set your opponents up for different moves and different things. So, like, if you're playing a couple snaps here and there, like, you can't set guys up. Now, if you're on the field all the time, you can do that. And I think with the addition of DJ Reader, I think that even takes that to a whole nother level, because now they have to worry about DJ Reader and Alim McNeill. Like, there are, like, Aiden Hutchinson. This changes that dynamic so much to where Alim was at 5.5 this year. He's going to get more this next year on top of that because of who he has around him. Hopefully, I would love to see him go up there and go for a double-digit sacks. I think I put it in my notes here. I wouldn't be shocked to see a guy like Alim McNeill at the Pro Bowl next year. That wouldn't be shocking to me. I wouldn't sit there, and if I saw him get voted in, I would not be like, whoa, Alim. No, like I was hoping last year he had like 5.5 with I don't know how many games it was. Like, what is it,
4.
6 or 7 games left? He missed 4. So, if he would have got to 8, he probably wouldn't have made it, but there would have been conversations. And I think that's this year with DJ Reader in there now. I think there's a conversation to where he's going to go out there, put some numbers up, and he's going to be a dominating threat inside, like dominating. Especially with what AG did at the end of the year with the blitzes and sending different pack, doing different things. He's going to get put in some very, very good positions, and he's going to be very good. Contract year too. On top of that, like everything, the stars are aligning.
And I agree with that. The contract year does matter. And I see Jeff put 5.5 is not close to double digits. What I meant was 5.5 with missing 4 games. So if you want to give him a sack or 2, I mean, if you give him 2 sacks, he's at 7.5 sacks. I think he would have gotten at least 1 or 2 sacks in those 4-game stretch, kind of looking at how he played all season. He had 5.5 and 13. So, whatever. If you want to stick with the 5.5, he's still, I think this year with more talent on the defensive line, certainly he can be in that, 8 sack range. That's my point. I think he can get there certainly this year with DJ Reader. So I'm curious. And again, we talk a lot about what, them extending players. I'm still curious about this, and we'll find out more this season, but where Alim McNeill ranks on like the pecking order for like re-signing guys. Like you have like your Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Penei Sewell. Like where does Alim kind of stack up in that? I've always wondered that. Is he more of a priority and you want to make sure you get him locked up next year? Or is he kind of like a, great player, like him, but we can go draft his replacement? I don't know. Because eventually you're going to have to start having those conversations with some players. Not everybody.
You would have to think he's not like very high up on their list as of now. Like I would look at him to come back, but he's going to be a lot of money. But the fact that he's right now, he can be extended at this moment. He's eligible. He is there with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei, same draft class. You can sit there and say there has been no conversations or no one's asked it in the media, which I'm interested. I should ask the doc if he wants to throw that to Brad next time. But I haven't really heard it. Maybe there has been a question. I just haven't heard it. But that hasn't been anything that's been out in the media is Alim McNeill's extension. And what is that like? Where's that at? Because at least with Penei, like the Penei extension could happen this year as well. But you have his 5th year after this year as well. Like you can still, opt into that 5th year and stick with that. So priority might not be the highest because they might be telling it because there has been nothing that's been released about, hey, we're in talks with his camp. Have not heard that once. We've heard it for Amon-Ra. We've heard it for Jared Goff. We've heard a few things from Penei. We have not heard that about Alim. Have not.
Well, Lucas, I mean, you don't get this extension done, which I'm not saying it's a must, but here's what that entails. You want to wait, and he goes out, messes around, gets 8.5, 9 sacks. Fat Joe said it. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Yep. So now we're talking, hey, Alim McNeill, I know we talked about a number. Can we kind of, no. I went out there, got 8.5. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking 20 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, honestly, Alim's going to be a guy that we haven't seen Brad Holmes franchise tag that many players, but I could see Alim McNeill being a guy who gets franchise tagged. And I think what it comes down to is how he performed within the division. Because if you look at the interior of the offensive lines inside the NFC North, outside of Garrett Bradbury from Minnesota, the offensive lines in the interior have nothing. You look at Chicago's center right now, it's Ryan Bates, who was fighting with Patrick, who was it, Lucas Patrick, or I can't even remember the name, but either way, there was a center battle in Chicago for who could burn down the place quicker. Then you go over to Green Bay, and they got Myers, who's all right, but Alim McNeill, you talk about one-on-ones with those guys, if he can dominate that, you can get a guy who commands double team within the draft. So Alim McNeill, he's got a lot to prove. If he balls out within the division, I think there's a highly likely chance that he gets extended just because he is a pass rusher and you got Jordan Love, most likely Caleb Williams, and the Minnesota is going to take a quarterback, potentially JJ McCarthy. Those guys, if the most difficult way for a quarterback to get through his reads if he's having pressure from the interior, because it's right in his face. He can't escape. And if he does, there's two guys on the edge to kind of collapse the pocket. So a player like Alim, he's not high on the priority list, but he's definitely somebody that can be like a very versatile piece and a luxury to this defense if he keeps playing the way that he does.
And this comment, fellas, like you can't, this is the conversation we had about a week ago or so. There's gonna be players you have to move on from. You cannot pay all of these guys. There's like when you're having success like this, there's gonna be guys that are gonna want money. Alim's one of those guys, and he might be like I would like to keep Amon Ra. I would like to keep Penei Sewell. I would like to keep Aiden Hutchinson. When you start breaking it down, like where does he lie on that list? Like, yeah, Lucas, like I'm with you. Like he's important to this defense and he does a lot. But now you just signed DJ Reader now to a 2-year deal. Like, can you draft a guy to replace Alim? Like, where does that fall under? Who's easier to replace, Alim McNeill or an Aiden Hutchinson? That's where it kind of comes down to me a little bit. I would love to keep Alim on the team for the next couple of years. The price tag, that's what it's like. You cannot pay all of these. Like Kirby's like, there's going to be money to go around. Like that has
here's the risk with that, because I see people and kind of on both sides, right? Like I see people talking about they should extend him early, get him tied up, and then I see Jeff talking about what if he gets 3.5 sacks this year? If you extend him, you're tied to an average dude for the foreseeable future, which I do think is fair. That's why I think we all agree he shouldn't be high in the pecking order. I actually don't even hate how Brad is actually approaching this, but the reason I just wanted to bring it up because there is that risk. Both sides. If you extend him early, will he reach his potential? And if you don't, the price goes up. Like Justin Madubuike, people don't remember this. Look at his first 3 years in the NFL. Like he wasn't, he had 5.5 last year, or 2 years ago now, technically. He had 5.5, guys. Same numbers as Alim. And I'm pretty sure Justin played in every game that season. Yeah, he played in 16 games and had 5.5 sacks. But guess what? They didn't know he'd come out this year and have 13. So there's the risk there. It's like, they didn't, and now Madubuike's he got a bag, an absolute bag. So there's that risk. It's like, hey, they have more intel on these players than we do. Obviously, they're around him in the building. You know what Alim McNeill is as a human being and as a football player. And if you want to make that move, then yeah, you can make sense of it. But yeah, I mean, just like Madubuike, who's to say Alim can't mess around and have a breakout year? I mean, Justin did it in a contract year, so it can certainly happen.